name is Megan Culkin, and we're going to be chatting about mastering the art of private residence weddings today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Megan. I was born originally in New York. I moved down to North Carolina when I was about 6 months old, but I still totally claim New York as my home. I was raised in Eastern North Carolina in a very small town, but we'll get into that in a minute. I'm a third generation event industry professional. Why am I qualified to teach you? So I have past experience as a catering, venue, and restaurant manager. I've planned over 350 weddings. Of those, about 70 of them have all been in private residence or tented receptions. What we'll cover today is the biggest myths about private residence weddings, how to vet a private residence client, hidden costs of some of those weddings, and we'll take a look at some different case studies. Okay, so I told you that I come from small town, Eastern North Carolina. This is a picture from around the corner from my house. So my mom likes to tell the story that there was a bank in our hometown, literally this little tiny brick building with the red awning. It was robbed by a man. He got away on foot. That happened twice. They closed the bank. This is small town Andy Griffith Show stuff, guys. We have no traffic light. It is like this cafe was on I would stop there on my way to school and get like a biscuit and a soda. And like once every 2 weeks, my mom would go in and they'd be like, she owes $12. This is like stuff movies are made out of. Needless to say, there are not a lot of wedding venues in a town like this. So when it came time for all of my friends to get married, most of them were like 19 years old, we had to create spaces for them. You'll see one of those spaces in a few minutes. So just hear me out. It looks like a podunk little town, but we can still make some magic happen. Some of the biggest myths that we see with private residence weddings, I'm sure some of you know it. Some of those things that we hear all the time are, I want to get married at home because it's cheaper. I want to get married at home because it's easier. In COVID, I wanted to get married at home because there's no rules. The venue's not going to tell me what to do. I want to get married at home because it's more low-key. Those are when we shut those weddings down. We shut down those beliefs because that is what we like to say, fake news, right? Like none of those things are true. When they say things like a wedding at home will be much harder and more expensive than working at a venue, but if the private residence is very important to me, I just can't imagine getting married anywhere else. It will all be worth it despite all of this work, despite all of this extra money, despite. That's your private residence. That's your green light. That's where we move forward. Additional costs that kind of come with that alongside of things that aren't affiliated if you were to book at a venue are going to be bathroom trailers. They're going to be about $2,500. Generators, $900 to $2,000. Lighting for parking, $600 to $1,500. Parking attendants. Could be a high school student, could be a college student. Maybe you're paying them in beer, but could be a couple $100. Off-duty police officers, a couple $100. Definitely worth having off-duty police officers, even to just like stop by at the end of the night. If you pay for nothing else, pay for this. Catering tents, a couple $100. Golf cart rentals or small like mini trailers, tractors that have the carts on the back. So if you have glass racks, that there's something that can be carted from side to side. Your rental company is going to drop things off on a concrete slab on a Wednesday and then leave and say bye. And then I show up and on Saturday morning and I'm like, great, what am I going to do with 900 glass racks that I have to move 800,000 feet? Like if I have golf carts that I can move them, it makes it a little bit easier. And home improvements and repairs. That, who knows how expensive that is, because it depends house to house. Here's the facts. You have to create a venue at a space that there's probably never been one before, with people who have never thrown a large-scale event. We had a wedding in August of 2021, and it went from 0% chance of rain to 90% chance of rain in the span of 72 hours. And they were on a lake, so flooding was going to be an issue. We had to add, I think, last minute expenses totaled $19,000 in 72 hours. But they fell into that green light category of like, the space matters. They had backup venues. They had all the concessions that we can move it, but it didn't matter to them. What mattered to them still was, we want to get married at home. We want to get married at home. We want to get married at home. Let's add a tent. Let's irrigate the grass. Let's do all the things that we could possibly do. Most importantly, most importantly, you should never, ever, ever, ever be doing day of coordination level of service, ever, but for a private residence wedding. And I'll say it again, you should not be hired for a day of level of coordination for a private residence wedding. If a couple comes to you and says, we've planned it all, it's going to be at our house, we know the house, so you don't have to worry about it. We will have it all done. All you need to do is come in on the wedding day. You can, by all means, have the conversation with them, try to convince them of your worth and your value. But if that is where they're at, it is not the wedding for you, because you are not going to have the time to develop all of those plans. They are going to be the ones that have those plans, hopefully, and it's going to leave you in the lurch when the first thing that goes wrong. You're not going to have the backup plans. You're not going to have any of that stuff. You're going to have their half-ass notebook that they handed you 3 days ago, and you're like, what am I going to do with this? And you'll see when we go into our case studies, some of those moments where in years previously where we had that kind of wedding management level of service of things were fine. They were okay, but the day was so much harder. They spent more money than they should have spent. The day was more stressful. They were more stressed. I was more stressed, and it just could have been better overall. And I didn't get to recommend to them the same level of service, and I couldn't be the same resource that I would have liked to have been to them had I been there from the beginning, or even been there at the beginning and then come in a little bit later, as kind of more of a partial service. If you're going for a patio, we have a wedding coming up and it's beautiful. They have this gorgeous patio, but it's open air. So are we going to just roll the dice and risk that in April it's not going to rain or have any inclement weather leading up to it? Probably not. A lawn floods, or it could have rained on Wednesday and it could still be marshy. So even though the weather could be nice day of, you need to protect it from the elements leading up to the day. The house is a challenge. The house is my least favorite, if I'm being honest, because first of all, the house is full of all of their things. We can't clear the house. We can't say vacate your home for the week. They didn't rent. Some people have multiple houses, but a lot of times we're not in their vacation home, we're in their real home. So it's not like, please take your child's artwork off of the fridge, or please take their pictures off of the wall. And so we're physically infiltrating their space, and it's finding that line of where is okay for us to be, where is not okay for us to be. And so that's a tricky one. Find out early what the family's comfort level is on their personal space, whether it's what their no-fly zone is. Does dad have a man cave? Does he collect cars? And so the garage is absolutely not. Is it, we have a wedding and he's an antique collector. So, they can't be in the house because drunk groomsman sits down a bottle of beer and that's an $8,000 buffet table that they ruined. We have to know that kind of information. We're not going to know that information if we're a day of coordinator. We need to know that information ahead of time, right? So knowing that, building that trust, that makes the investment in you worth it because they see that you care about not just the bride and groom or the bride and bride or the groom and groom, not just about the couple. You care about the family, about the space. You're invested in all of it, right? And so you care about what they care about, and that matters. We had this one wedding, and the family was lovely throughout the entire process, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, and they would not let us in the house and to use the bathroom. And it was myself and 4 of my girls and the rental company. And they were setting up tents, and it was a 3-day process. And we had to drive 17 miles to Lowe's Home Improvement anytime we needed to go to the bathroom or go get anything, because they were absolutely not, you cannot use our bathroom. And we had all the conversations, and they were oh yeah, sure, of course, don't be ridiculous. And they Jekyll and Hyded me. And so it is literally something that now we have it in our contract, that it's we will not allow guests in your home, but as a vendor, when there are 5 people on site 4 days ahead of your event, you have to allow us to use your restroom. We're not going to eat your food. We're not going to sleep in your beds. This is not Goldilocks, but you're going to let me use your bathroom. I ain't driving to Lowe's Home Improvement. Remember this place around the corner from my house? They give me a bill, and my mom goes in and pays every once in a while. So their granddaughter got married, and they have a sweet potato farm. And this is my favorite wedding, private residence wedding that we ever did. And so they have this sweet potato, I don't know what they're called. I'm not a sweet potato farmer. But the big bays, they were all, these sweet potato boxes were completely filled in here. And so we brought all of them out and cleaned I didn't clean it, but somebody cleaned the entire space. And then we built, had them all move them and made them walls. And then draped the entrance. And so then when everybody walked in, they entered the space. He was an Air Force pilot, so you couldn't get a picture from the top, but the tables were in a spindle, the helicopter. And then because we were in a big field in the middle of the nowhere, we were able to bring in a helicopter that was able to bring them in for their arrival and take them off for their landing or for their, departure. So that was pretty amazing, and not something we would have been able to do in the middle of, downtown Raleigh. And it was so wonderful, and everyone was so kind and so, just charming and lovely. And yes, we had to bring everything in, but also we had the space and the time, and it was just kind of sure, when else are we going to get to do this, So it's just one of those moments where you have the opportunity to really lean in and use your imagination and really lean into what's special about the couple and what's important about the couple, and really make it something that is so unique to them. Okay, so some important takeaways. Private residence weddings are not less expensive or less stressful. The majority of mistakes can be avoided by hiring a planning team for partial or full service level of planning service rather than day of coordination. Private residence weddings are not the time to go with a team of family friend vendors. It is definitely the time to go with your A team and, to really just have that strong group of people in your back pocket, because just honestly, the stronger the team, the easier the day goes. And in any wedding, but particularly on a private residence day, when I can look around and just know that I've got people who know how we operate and can just kind of like anticipate our moves, it just makes all the difference in the world. And private residence weddings can be incredibly special and worth the extra effort when done right. Any questions, comments, and concerns, we will take them at this time. And this is how you can stay in touch with our team. Thank you so much.